So guys, welcome back to the next FPL Hawk YouTube video. It's been a while, 2 weeks I think, and the reason for that is that I have been extremely busy and also a bit sick. Now, because I do have some many league rivals who follow this channel, this is not my actual team. This is just like the first auto pick team that came up. But today we are going to be looking at the best players to buy this game week. And I will also recommend options that you might have to sell. So I can maybe suggest some transfers if you have these players. So player number one that I want to look at is Jared Bowen because there's been a lot of controversy around him this week. Apparently he might play, he might not. There's high hopes in around West Ham fans that he might start the next game against Crystal Palace, but I'm not entirely sure. Now, if you look at this fixture ticker, um, these fixtures are not bad at all for Jared Bowen. In fact, from game week 14 to 18, even though two of them are great, if you consider Spurs and Man United's defense over the past few weeks, they really have not been good. And in game week 18 in particular, I think if Man United continue to play how they are, then Bowen could be a very good option. Now, if you don't have him at the moment, I would definitely not recommend to buy it until we really know what's going on with his injury. Moyes wasn't very helpful in the press conference today. He just said that he might play, but it depends on the risk, something along those lines. Um, but if he does play, I think he's an absolutely fantastic option. And if you currently have him, I would, however, suggest selling because there's probably other players you want to buy. For example, someone like a Mitoma who just came back from injury, or potentially an Mbama since he's been quite good recently as well. Um, but I don't want to force anyone into doing anything. This is just my opinion. And obviously this is a lot easier to say as someone who doesn't own Bowen. But if you do have Bowen, I would wait until tomorrow morning, wait as long as possible. But if we're still as we are now, I would probably suggest to sell him. Next up, and I want to look at Ollie Watkins. Ollie Watkins is another big one because he is owned by 42.6% of players, and he has been ticking along he has been ticking along these past few weeks. If I can scroll down, so as you can see here, since his 23-point haul against Brighton in Game 7, he's gotten 5, 11, 2, 2, 6 on 5 points. Now, he did have two blanks in arguably the two easiest fixtures of this run, but overall his numbers have been great. Even against Luton and Nottingham Forest, he put up against Luton he put up 1.4 XGI and got nothing, which I think was really unlucky. And against Nottingham Forest, he still put up 0.3 expected goals. But what I really want to look at is his XG against Fulham, because he only scored one goal, but he had an expected goals of nearly two, which is absolutely crazy for one player. But he only got the one goal. Um, Now next up he's got Bournemouth. So if you think he starts, I would definitely keep him. But the problem is the fixtures that come after because in game week 15 and 16 he plays Man City at home and Arsenal at home. Arguably the two toughest fixtures apart from the same teams away and potentially Liverpool as well. But then after that he plays Brentford, who haven't been too bad at all this season. Now I do see the kind fixture run beyond that. But if you've got your team well set up and you have a spare transfer potentially, I don't see how making two free transfers, one to sell him now and one to buy him back, maybe in game week 18, makes that big of a difference. So I think that you could probably get away with selling him now, but it depends on how your team looks. Now, me personally, I think he starts. But if, as I said before, that's just my opinion. If you personally think he'll be benched, then I see no reason at all to not sell him. And I would advise, if I thought that he wasn't going to start, I'd probably sell him. But my my opinion is that he starts. But as I say, that's just my opinion. So yeah. But if you do want to sell him, I would suggest Julian Alvarez as a handy differential because I feel like he's being overlooked because of his poor form recently. But next up, he's got Spurs, who have Romero and Van der Ven missing. And then a week after that, after Aston Villa, he has Luton and Crystal Palace. Now, he doesn't have a fixture in game week 18, but if you have a strong bench, you can just simply bench him, and he does have great fixtures around that blank. So if you're looking for a handy differential to help you climb up your mini league or the overall rank, I would suggest Julian Alvarez. If not, I would probably suggest Darwin Nunez. Now, Darwin Nunez hasn't done anything impressive of late, but the upcoming fixtures are good. However, one small caveat with Darwin Nunez is that these three games all happen in the space of 6 days, and two of them are away from home, so I expect him to start one or maximum two out of three of these games. And I really, really do not think that he will start all three of them. With this in mind, it's a viable option to buy him, but I keep in mind that you may get a benching in the next week if you do buy him. Next up, we are going to talk about Haaland because if you sold Haaland, you're probably regretting it right now. I'm thinking until sorry, until about game week 9, it was going great for you. Game week 10 made it quite bad, but game week 11 probably gave you some hope, which was then shattered by game weeks 12 and 13. Now, while City's form hasn't been impeccable over these past 5 games, Haaland has certainly been performing quite well, and I would probably suggest buying him back as soon as possible, even if it means taking a hit to do so, because this man seems essential to me right now. Next up, play Spurs at home, as I mentioned, without Romero and Van der Ven, and Luton after that in game 16, with Crystal Palace in game 17. So, if you do not have this man in your team, I would buy him immediately back. Now, some other players that I might look to avoid, who I think a lot of people, or at least some people, are going for, but I personally don't think are great options, include Solanke. Now, after game 12, a lot of people are looking at Solanke, and it seemed like he was the number one target for a lot of FPL managers. The truth is that you're probably going to get around a goal every 2 or 3 games with Solanke, which for his price is very good. But I think some people need to make their expectations slightly more realistic because some people are buying him under the illusion that he's going to be scoring braces every game. And I hate to break it to you, but that just isn't going to be happening. Although Solanke is indeed a great player, and even when he blanked against Sheffield, he put up great numbers. As I said, he's probably only going to get you around a goal every 2 or 3 weeks. And if we look at his past 4 games, he has 2 goals in 4 games, which is a goal every 2 games on average. Now, I do think Solanke is a great option if you're looking for a differential, but it's also worth noting that Bournemouth themselves aren't that good a team despite beating Newcastle, and it means that they may struggle to get chances to him. But if you're going for him, I don't have too much of a problem with it. I just want you to not get your expectations too high up because you may be disappointed. Now, in the midfield section, Eze's injury has probably been heartbreaking for many of you, including myself, who have the Crystal Palace man. Now, apparently he's out for 3 to 4 weeks, which is not at all what we wanted to hear, especially after I brought him in as a punter in game week 12, only to see him blank against Luton with 1 point. That said, if you can afford to hold him, I think he's still a great option. Not many have him, and in 3 or 4 weeks we'll actually be at around game week 17 or 18, and after that the defenses aren't too bad. Although if you have him now, I would probably sell, but it depends on how your team is looking. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'm sorry I haven't been able to put up as many videos, but hopefully you found this video helpful. If so, please give it a like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you next week for the next one.